India's cities and top towns are racing to embrace digital. But how can Bharat, India's hinterland, and the businesses therein speed up on the digital highway, especially when those businesses can lead to prosperity and growth all around? While it's accepted that digital transformation can level the playing field to a great extent for MSMEs, challenges remain. MSMEs have been overrepresented in sectors most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. They tend to have weaker supply chain capabilities and lower uptake of digital tools and technologies. Many of them have been in survival mode for the last 20 odd years. The sector also faces other stresses, chiefly gaps in connectivity, low trust, and often a resistance to break existing habits and patterns. So in this backdrop, how can MSMEs adopt a digital-first strategy? That's our ETRise top MSME conversation for today. I'm Maloni Bhatt, and joining me are people who work in this ecosystem that enable SMEs and MSMEs to strengthen and grow their businesses. First, we have Akash Gehani. He is the COO and co-founder of InstaMojo, an online selling platform for small and independent businesses. Akash, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Maloni. Pleasure to be here.
Next, we have with us Manan Dixit. He's the founder and CEO of FidiPay, or FinTech. FidiPay wants to democratize financial services through technology. Welcome.
Hello, thanks, Maloni, for having us.
And lastly, we have Pawan Ponnappa. He's part of the leadership team and is head of categories and marketing at eBay. Very nice to have you, Pawan, again.
Thank you very much, Maloni. Look forward to the conversation.
Pawan, let's begin with you. What are the hesitations that small businesses articulate to you when they come to sell at a marketplace or trade their goods on a platform like eBay? And how do you handhold or counsel them?
I think the biggest challenge that most businesses face is how easy or complex is it to start and get their business going on a platform. And I think that's the real inertia. And I think once they get past that stage, it becomes easier. Of course, there are many steps beyond that, but I think that's the initial hurdle that they want to get past. And that's where, platforms like eBay or InstaMojo all play a role in trying to make that easier for MSMEs to get their business going, get their products online, get reach. And once they have that reach and access, right, I think then it's all about being able to run your business efficiently. But I think the starting point to be able to get onto the platform is an important hurdle that sellers do articulate. From an eBay perspective, while that's an important aspect, and we focus a lot on how easy it is to get sellers to go global, because we're not just talking about selling from a domestic point of view, but selling across the world. We try to make that as seamless as possible as selling to a buyer in India, right? And that also entails simplifying not just the ability to bring your products online, but how do you actually ship your products? How do you actually get your payments and remittances? Because this is money that's going to come from buyers overseas. So it's an end-to-end process that we lay out for the sellers. And this is something that once they get going, is very, very easy for them to manage. And it's pretty much a one window where they get everything done with respect to listing the product, shipping the product, and getting paid for it.
Right. Manan, Indian merchants, especially maybe in rural India, are not aware of digital payments methods. Now, I don't know if the pandemic has changed that, but the system can be challenging because most of the communication is in English. There's a low literacy level when it comes to English. The process is considered foreign, and for a lot of people, it's a struggle. When you get past that, then you have connectivity issues. Internet connection is weak, it drops, hardly inspires any confidence. In such a scenario, there are barriers even before one begins. So then how can MSMEs adopt a digital-first strategy?
So, Malone, this has been the scenario across the rural India for quite some time. But if you see from last 3-4 years, due to the 4G connectivity that has penetrated even the remotest part of the India, a better infrastructure, the push from the government side on the BharatNet, digital payment solutions and UPIs. So all those things are changing on the ground. Secondly, if you see a lot of fintechs like Instamojo, like us, even the other players out there out in the market, now they have come up with a multilingual applications. So it's more of a vernacular content that is coming out for the MSMEs or SMEs to better strategize their digital first strategy and then implement it out at the end of the day. So we at FidiPay also try to ensure work with them how you can minimize your initial teething troubles when onboarding on any payment or any collections or any platform which basically helps you digitize your flow of payments or bankings or collections. So that is something that is anyways changing from last couple of years. And due to pandemic, people have realized that they have to adopt the digital strategy. They can't just choose ki nahi humko nahi karna hai. That can't happen nowadays. They have to do it, otherwise there's no surviving out there in the market now. So I guess that has changed. That mindset has changed in last couple of years.
Right. Akash, to you, from being a payments platform, your company now offers a range of digital solutions, for businesses, MSMEs, and entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs. So they come to you to fill a gap that they know exists. So what is your process of helping them understand the benefits or laying it out for them for going digital?
Yeah, so I think as Manan also mentioned, right? I think one is businesses have realized that this is no longer an option. Adopting the digital ways has become a necessity for all, and I think that trend has been on for a few years. The last couple of years with COVID has only accelerated the entire momentum towards these businesses in terms of going online, adopting all different kinds of tools that they need to run. So at one level, businesses have realized they have woken up to it in a big way. The other thing that we've seen, in our experience of working these businesses is they need some time. When I say time, the first step is critical, right? For you to adopt a platform, setting up a business, that is key. I think that's where there's a lot of inhibition, there's a lot of shyness over there. Once you take that, it takes some time, right? Maybe a few weeks to months, depending what kind of a business you are. But after that, you really, take to it in a very big way. Right? So I think you spend a bit of time initially in terms of figuring it out, in building trust with the new ways of doing business. And I think once that bridge is passed, you're able to do it much better. So I think we've seen that. From our side, we create a lot of content which helps the businesses do it. We do this over various channels, right? A lot of social media. We create ebooks, we create videos. We create actually courses for them, which them understand what is GST. What is digital marketing? How can you leverage social media? Stuff like that. So we do create a lot of that content, and also a lot of what we do doesn't necessarily focus on Instamojo. It's not about how Instamojo will help you. It's more generic than that. It's about you succeeding in this journey, and I think that goes a long way. So I think we're doing a lot of this awareness creation from our side in helping these businesses learn about things, and then once you get to know that, you're able to adopt different tools that you need for it.
And is the uptake then better? So even if someone comes to you, can you give us a time frame, from the time they start initially speaking to you to finally coming on board? What is the average time frame?
So I think the initial time, it usually takes like, a couple of weeks, for you to, go back, think over it, essentially being able to navigate, right? I mean, no matter how great a product you build, how simple it is, for someone to use, they take their time, right? Just about building trust with it. But I think that's just the first step. Like, for example, what we've seen is, in our history, when businesses start, you start off collecting, and, when I look at, like say transactions, right? From a payment standpoint, you take some time, you do a few test transactions, you want to give it some time, right? See how the entire cycle works. You get 100 rupees. Oh, that money flows into your bank account, and you start, adopting it in a big way.
Yeah.
Typically it takes them like a few months, like about a couple of months, like 2 months or so, for you to like fully adopt it, right? For like, let's say 100% of a business. So yeah, it does take some time for you to just build your trust, get familiar with with it.
Right. Pawan, to become globally competitive, one of the things that MSMEs need is an efficient, low-cost retail export channel. So what does the marketplace like eBay offer Indian MSMEs? especially new sellers who may have no experience in this type of selling?
Yeah. So from a platform perspective, what we try to really simplify for a seller is how do they sell to different parts of the world in terms of being able to understand the product and the market that they're trying to address, right? And that's one part of the role that a platform like us play. The other bit is about how easy is it for me to start selling. Well, I know I need to sell a product A to the United States, and I'm selling a similar modified product which caters to the UK market. Now, how do I sell into both these markets with ease? And I think that's where the ability and the platform that we have allows a seller to come in, list his products, and replicate it across a host of different markets, depending on what they want to sell in which market, and thereby really making it efficient to get their products available in those markets. The other part is post having your product available is how do you ship or move your product, and that's where we partner with all the leading providers of logistics services who ship to every part of the world, and we cover in excess of 150 countries where and pin codes across all these countries where your product can be delivered. Right now, a seller therefore needs to come on board and choose whichever provider he wants to ship through, depending on an order that he receives. So it's not something that he needs to decide upfront. So that also makes it extremely efficient to choose the best possible combination of logistics that he needs. And lastly, like Akash and Manan mentioned, it's all about how do I get the money in my bank account, right, at the end of it. And I think that's where eBay has, for its entire journey over the last 25 years, played the role of getting a buyer to operate an extremely low working capital by actually giving them their payments well ahead of them actually necessarily delivering the product even to the end buyer. And that's because of the trust-based model that exists on eBay as a marketplace. Because of all the data that we have regarding buyers and sellers, we know that the level of trust in a particular transaction, and we're able to ensure that no side loses out and sellers receive their money in the fastest possible time, and therefore are able to operate an extremely efficient business from a cash flow point of view. And I think for small businesses, it's extremely important to be able to operate their business in a cash efficient manner. So I think that's how I would look at the role of a platform. Of course, there are a lot of things beyond the platform where we work with the government and all the other stakeholders to ensure that processes and policies are simplified. But yeah, as a platform, this is where I would say. Yeah.
When it comes to policies and processes, is it tough going, or do you find everyone to be receptive, especially as we've gone through a pandemic and now we are trying to move beyond it?
Yeah, I think the emphasis on the need for Indian businesses to scale globally, that emphasis has definitely increased over the last 2 years. And you can see that in all discussions that happen within the government, and also in the way that they're positioning Indian businesses and the way their policies are being rolled out. So there is definite emphasis there. There's no doubt about it, and it will continue to get smoother as we go along. As far as policy is concerned, it's a very complex ecosystem that we're looking at. We're looking at goods moving out of a country and to another country. So there are, in terms of rules and regulations, there are a lot of complexities. It has been simplified to a great deal. There's a lot of digitization that's happening along the entire chain, whether be it customs, be it the RBI, which looks at the movement of money. So the movement of goods, the movement of money, and there's a lot of digitization that's happened in both these value chains. And that's really going to make it smoother for sellers to be able to operate the business extremely efficiently. Like you said, that's part of the efficiency element in running a business. And if you look at from a policy standpoint, with the foreign trade policy that's slated to come out in a short while, and we've been working with the DGFT and all the other government bodies to try and ensure that e-commerce and e-commerce export is clearly covered in those policies, so that there's clarity across the different arms of the government to ensure that movement of goods is not restricted in any way. So I think it's a lot to do about movement of goods. I think that's getting simplified. There is still some way to go before we are able to really make it extremely efficient for all sizes of business.
Right. Manan, where does fintech score when it comes to helping MSMEs adopt a digital strategy? How can fintech companies increase their reach to small businesses?
So if you typically see, Miloni, fintechs have been doing that into the industry, disrupting the entire ecosystem by bringing in the innovative products, by bringing in the more simpler products to understand for the end consumer. So be it an MSME or a basic consumer. Like today, if you see, fintechs have changed the way we make payments. Nowadays, we don't even need a banking app. We all rely on some of the payment apps that are out there. Similarly, that they have changed the way that the online transactions happen. For that matter, what Pawan has mentioned, that the movement of the goods has to happen. So these are all the innovations which any fintech brings in picture. And at the end of the day, they work on a very focused approach of a particular industry. Okay, this is where I want to work. This is where what I want to solve. And this has been the biggest change in last couple of years in India, that fintechs have changed the way we transact, the way we bank, the way we do collections even. Like we as FidiPay have been working a lot in government space as well, with the cooperative banks, with the MSMEs, with the basically the businesses of Bharat. So we see that a lot of changes are happening up. People are trying to adopt that. They are wanting to adopt that. It's just how easy that you can make it to the end user. Like one of the deployment that we did is what the government deployment. Now we understand that there's going to be a lot of friction that is going to come from a government department, because people are not used to it. The consumers are not used to it. Even the operators who are trying to work on the solution will have a resistance. So we have given it in a vernacular language. We have given them the videos. We do a lot of hand holding with them. We make them understand what is the benefit out of it. So once you have that confidence in place, then obviously उसकी आदत पड़ जाती है. Like जैसे आज हमारी आदत पड़ गई है. If someone today says कि यार फोन पे कल से बंद हो जाएगा या गूगल पे नहीं चलेगा, so we'll be wondering कि यार अब UPI पेमेंट नहीं होगा तो कल क्या करेंगे हम. So that is something, a thought. So this thought has to be embedded into the MSMEs and SMEs also over a period of time. And I guess fintech will play a major role in doing that.
But, tell us, Manan, has that thought already started, becoming entrenched in them, that, there is an ease over here, which they did not have before, or are there still barriers that keep them back?
No, there has been a thought which has already started, like what InstaMojo has been doing, what eBay has been doing, what other players in the industry have been doing. They have made them basically, I would say, addicted to one of the products that they have delivered it out. And because of that, the ease of business has happened, or ease of payment has happened. Now today, if you go to any shop out there, जैसे कि सर ये पेमेंट हटा दो, आप कुछ कैश ले लो, तो बोलेगा नहीं सर ये बेटर है मेरे लिए, अकाउंट में पैसा आ जाता है, व्हाई वुड आई वांट टू डू दैट, और मेरा ऑनलाइन ट्रांजैक्शंस हो जाता है, व्हाई वुड आई वांट टू इन्वेस्ट इनटू समथिंग जहाँ पे मेरा आराम से मेरी शॉप खुल रही है, वहाँ पे मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन हो रहा है, पेमेंट बैंक में आ रहा है, मेरे को क्यों दिमाग लगाना है. So that there has been a lot of addictions in such places, and it is growing day by day.
Okay. Akash, I want to link to what Manan just said. Now, I don't know if it is valid, but one of the fears I would assume a small business would have is that the cost of digitization could be immense. Perhaps the input cost, maybe people costs. Is that true? And, what would you like to tell those people who are perhaps reluctant on this count?
I think a very straightforward answer would be no. The costs are actually not immense at all, right? I think it's become really cheap, and the costs are reducing by the day. But I think that's not the point that we try to make to them, right? I think the point we try to make is forget about the cost. I think the first part is the realization that you have to do it, right? Because the cost of not digitizing is far higher. So at one level, you have to understand and accept that this is what I have to do. Once you realize, once you accept that, Then it's a matter of figuring out, okay, what is the cost? What is the best solution? Should I be using InstaMojo or should I be using something else? Then that comes in, right? But I think the first thing is just creating that awareness that you have to do it. Once you do that, I think, and then coming back to the original point, I think the cost is not high at all. Today, we've seen that,
Even people cost, Akash, getting
really,
right.
not really, because today you have tools available that you can do everything, right? Like for example, you want to set up a website and sell to your merchants, sorry, to your customers directly. You don't need a technical developer for it, right? A tool like InstaMojo can help you do that directly. All you need to do is as simple as using Facebook or WhatsApp for you, right? So just come on board, add your products, and start selling. You don't want to have a website, you want to sell through a marketplace. Great, go to eBay. You again don't need a developer or to hire an agency which will help you do it. So the cost is not really very high. It's only when you start scaling, when you reach a certain scale, do you feel that, yes, I need dedicated resources for so and so needs. And maybe you can figure it out at that point of time. But just the fact of getting started to reaching, like a few crores of sales, you can do it just by yourself. Even tools like if you want to market your products, going to a Facebook, going to a Google, running ads over them, you don't need an agency for it, right? At a very early scale. Only when you reach a substantial scale, can you think of hiring a team, or maybe I can outsource it to an agency, work along those lines. So I think the cost in that sense, I think it's the best time ever. Today there is no dearth of products that can help you do it. And we're seeing this, when we call about this tech boom and how the startups are growing in the country. I think one thing we also see is just the sheer quality of products which are being created are at such a great high, it just keeps improving all the time. So I think it's just about having that mindset that I can do it. Sorry?
The challenge then is at your end.
Yes, exactly, right? So it's just about creating that awareness, and which is what we tell, right? I think the first step is understanding that the cost of not going online, the cost of not digitizing is far higher. Because if I don't invest that money today, whatever, little or high the amount is, if I don't do it today, I will be irrelevant a couple of years down the line. So I better start on that journey right away.
Right. Pawan, the pandemic hit MSMEs badly in terms of supply chain, labor, credit, everything was uncertain. What was your experience with those who were on your platform? Did they drop off? Did they come back? What was the experience like?
And I think on the contrary, I would say it kind of led to a boom in terms of businesses wanting to go online. The situation, because of the pandemic, meant a lot of businesses that relied on offline markets started seeing immense pressure on their business. And of going online actually provided them the ability to reach out to buyers despite the pandemic being there. Yes, there was a small period when we were in a very tight lockdown, I would say, where logistics was completely restricted, which was a period which was challenging for the businesses. And as a platform, I think a very simple responsibility for eBay was how do we protect these businesses during that period? And we work obviously with our global teams to ensure that all orders coming into sellers from India were given the necessary protection so that they could continue to sell, potentially with higher lead times in terms of delivery, thereby keeping both buyers and sellers informed. And I think as an open marketplace and buyers and sellers who've been on the marketplace for a long time, there was a great deal of understanding demonstrated to both sides, both buyers and sellers, where buyers understood the challenges that sellers were facing because of the lockdown and because of logistics challenges, and were willing to actually wait for their product as long as they were kept informed. So I think if you can, over communicate in one way with both your buyers and your sellers, ensure that they know what's happening on the ground, and there is a clear path for returning back to normalcy in terms of business. I think it works very well, and that's what we saw. We saw a lot of businesses actually scale up. Typically, the smaller ones scaling up and actually putting in a lot more effort into their businesses because they realize that that is what would keep them afloat. And I think that for us is a great testament to the fact that online businesses actually are resilient to a lot more in terms of disruptions to the economy and to normalcy. I think that actually tells us this is here to stay, and that trend therefore has continued from there on.
Manan, for you, how was it for your business during the pandemic? Pawan was telling us that business boomed for them.
In fact, the same thing happened with us as well. It was an overwhelming response from all the sectors, whether it is government channel, whether it is B2B, whether it is MSMEs, whether it is corporates, enterprise. Everybody wanted to go digital and perform some of the transactions, whether it is a UPI transaction or a API banking or collections. Because see, at the end of the day, people realize that we cannot depend on a physical channel now. It has to be on a format of a digital if we want to scale up, if we want to serve the audience at large. And that is where all the fintechs have been moving. Like if you see 2021 funding reports, so this has been a year of fundings on IPOs. Everybody has been getting fundings, everybody has been getting IPOs. So people are wondering, kya ho raha hai? Actually, the business have grown. Like we ourselves at FittyPay have grown 12 times from January to December. So this has been a tremendous era, I would say, for all the companies out there who is working into the tech space, who is digitizing some of the fronts, whether it is health insurance or fintechs or any segment. I would say it is all booming at the end of the day.
Akash, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we've seen something similar, like, every time, and, we saw this in two waves. Last year we saw a big, jump in, how businesses wanted to go online. And I think the same coincided this year. So every time there was a lockdown, I think businesses were idle because again, you were not able to function in your traditional, channels. You had a lot of free time. I think that's when we saw, right, the number of businesses were signing up on InstaMojo. It just doubled up overnight. And that momentum sustained till the lockdown was there. And then again, it reduced a bit. But it's not that, it's gone back to, earlier days. It's still fairly high. So I think that realization is there. So I think at one end is at the top of the funnel, yes, that awareness has gone up. Businesses are, are going online today. Does it translate into business? I think that's going to be a longer journey, right? Because again, it takes time for them to figure it out. It takes time for, to this becoming a big part of their business. I think that's going to take time. But the seeds of, the seeds have been sown. And I think over the next couple of years, we'll see how it, plays out.
Like I just want to add what Akash just said. Exactly what happened after the demonetization. The digital payments have seen a boom. So right. After the pandemic, the entire digital strategy of the businesses have seen a boom, whether any business of India, I would say, or the globally.
Right.
Yep, totally.
Pawan, in an increasing digital era, where from our conversation, we're figuring out that, it is inevitable. Digitization is inevitable to be integrated into business models. In India, there is a huge digital divide. Do you sometimes feel that, digitization is increasing the disparities? Maybe as, Akash was telling us that there is a part of the funnel where there is a huge need, or, there is a realization of adoption, and therefore it is increasing at pace. But, lower down, do you feel that there is a disparity which is growing? And what is the way to ensure an equal playing field, for the micro enterprises as well?
Well, Milan, if you asked me this question 3 years ago, I probably would have said there is, some level of disparity. If you look at across the major metro or tier one or the main cities and business centers versus the rest. But looking at the transition over the last 3 years and like what Akash and Manan were talking about, I think it's seen a significant shift. I think one part of the shift is about mindset and thinking, where I think digitization is now becoming part of daily life much more significantly than it was 3 to 4 years ago. Be it payments, be it somebody buying some product or even a service online, not just a product, right? I think that shift in mindset has also spilled over to businesses and how businesses have started looking at it. And when I say this, I also say this from point of view of not just the small businesses, but even large businesses and manufacturers have also started looking at how do they tap into this entire digital ecosystem, right? Otherwise, they feel they will also be left behind in this journey. So while this digital democratization is happening at scale, I think this divide that we were talking about or would have been more evident earlier, I think that's vanishing, and that's a great leveler in terms of opportunity for businesses, no matter where they're located. It could be located in the smallest of towns and cities, and you could just be a manufacturer of a small range of products. But today you can still take that product from that city and deliver it to almost anywhere in the world, right? Also these changes which have happened with respect to our supply chain in terms of logistics, fueled by the domestic market as well, I think has helped it make it much easier, not just to look at it from a point of view of whether I can transmission of data and information is possible, but movement of goods has also become equally easy. So I think if you ask me today, the playing field actually has leveled up very significantly, and that's one of the reasons that you will see, and we already see a lot of D2C brands coming into the market, because the barrier to entry today and the ability to reach an end buyer has almost vanished. You can today reach out to any buyer. If you have the right product, there is a buyer for your product. And I think when you start looking at it at a global scale, it's even more diverse. You have so many range of products that we manufacture or we have, that there will always be a buyer in some international market or the other, and that's big enough for you to scale your business significantly. So I think the playing field, in my opinion, is already leveled. As a matter of fact, it's about who is not getting onto this bandwagon right now that's going to face a challenge in the the years ahead.
What I understand, you're essentially saying that the structure now is that how do they stay competitive for businesses?
Absolutely. I think it's important to be relevant.
Right. Manan, I just had this thought: is there are cyber hacks and scams, and we hear of it all the time. Do you see, in your experience, from your vantage, do you see that as something that puts small businesses off from going digital at all? I mean, is that a concern they express to you?
Yeah, obviously, because see, what happens is, like if you see in general, negativity happens much faster than the positivity across the industry. So whenever someone hears about it, obviously there are challenges, there are frauds which are happening up. But if you see at large, RBI as a regulator, and say as a entity that is taking care of all these processes in place. Plus, there are a lot of regulations and compliances which has even come up for fintech companies out there in the market, which we have to comply. We have to follow those processes. All these processes, at the end of the day, all these processes ensure that there are less frauds which are happening. There are less chargebacks which are coming in picture. So, like at our end, also we have a small risk and compliance team which keeps on tracking this. Like if there's a sudden spike which is coming up, if the merchant has suddenly said ki high value transactions ho rahe. So we also try and understand what is it that you're trying to do, and what is it, the end product that you are selling up. Typically, the frauds and all this chargeback happens more on the consumer side than on the businesses side, I would say, because businesses have a more mature ecosystem compared to customers. In terms of delivery of services and all that, obviously that comes in picture. Every now and then we keep hearing कि यहाँ पे ये fraud हो गया है, वहाँ वो fraud हो गया है, हमने business को पैसा दिया था, हमको service नहीं मिली है. So all these things will keep on coming because this is a part and parcel of the game, I would say. Like even if you see on an offline mode, कल आपने check से payment करा, check के भी fraud होते थे, cash के भी frauds होते थे. So digital frauds भी है कहीं ना कहीं. I'm not sure that will be eliminated 100%, but as a technology, obviously it will keep on improving. As a compliance, it will keep on benefiting the consumers and protect the consumers at large.
Akash, you articulated that being smaller can actually give you an edge, because our economic landscape is shifting, things are improving. And the increased speed required by businesses to succeed, it provides a fertile ground for SMEs who are future ready. So how can we make them more aware of their positives? You've spoken about education, you've spoken about outreach. What are the other ways that we can, move the message along?
Yeah, I think the ways remain pretty much the same, right? I think being small gives you advantages. You're much closer to your customers. You get to hear about them, from them directly a lot more, right? Which helps you stay much closer to them. You understand their needs much better, and that is something you have to make the most of, right? Because it's like shedding a lot of baggage, which for a bigger enterprise, just not easy. There are set ways of doing business, and for you to be able to trying out new things, shifting gears, it's not very easy for you to do. I mean, just look at TikTok, for example. When TikTok came, the kind of content we see getting created over there is just like the creativity which is being unleashed is just spectacular. And I don't think a lot of us could see, that kind of content, that engagement, that level of creativity coming out, right? I think there is so much of that lying around, and you just need a platform to be able to showcase. At our end, over the past few years, the sheer number and the diversity of businesses that we've seen, the kind of approaches that they've used in terms of products that they are creating, in terms of the way that they are marketing, it's just shaking us up, right? Okay, there is so much of creativity out there. So I think it's just about you figuring out what is it that works. And again, I don't think there's a set answer for it, but I think all the options are there, right? Social media has made it so much easier for you to have that conversation, to reach out to your customers directly, and catching their attention, which was never possible earlier. The only way we could do it earlier was by spending a whole lot of money. Today you need to do that. Today you need to spend a whole lot of your brain power and not money. And of course, if you have both, then even better, right? But I think there's an advantage which a smaller business has, that you're able to try out these things, be more experimental about it. And the other part is, at that scale, even the cost of failing is not very high, because if you do something which doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out, right? That's it, right? You go back to the drawing board and try out something new tomorrow. It's not that you've suffered a reputation loss, which, let's say, like a bigger FMCG brand would be very, very worried off, right? So you're able to do a lot of those things. And yeah, I think it's just about unleashing your creativity out there.
Akash, you put it so well. I think, you've given this discussion a really good end, that, perhaps there are challenges that are there for small businesses to go digital, but there is a huge opportunity, and, the cost of not going digital is perhaps higher. There are problems, policy issues, which are being ironed out. And if everyone kind of works together, then surely all of this will be overcome to benefit everyone. So thank you so much for your time, Pawan, Manan, and Akash. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manoni. Thank you, Akash. Thanks, Manan. Take care.
Thanks you all.
Thank you.